Okay, everyone, let's get the show on the road, and we're going to all sit down, and we're going to have Eric HEITKAMP come up. And okay, everyone, let's take a seat. We're going to have Eric come up and do the Pledge of Allegiance and our anthem. Yes.
Thank you, President Jeff. Do we have any concerns today as we get started? Yes, sir. Anyone else?
Anybody know David Gleason that was in the real estate business here? David Gleason, who was with Henry Miller and that, he passed away 2 days ago.
Anyone else?
Did you all repeat those names?
Jeff
David
wanted-
Gleason with Henry S. Miller passed away. So,
And
yes.
one of Jeff Brady's friends has prostate cancer.
Yeah, Jeff Brady's friends has prostate cancer. Anyone else? Lee, actually, we had, what was the synopsis of the last communication with Alan?
He is out, his girlfriend is taking care of him, and he was going to try to be here today, but a doctor's appointment, of his 5 doctors, one I've got away, he's going to try to come next week. We'll see what happens.
Yes. Okay.
But his kidneys are working right now.
Okay, keep going.
All right, let's, with keeping in mind that fall begins tomorrow, if you can believe it, summer is over, let's bow our heads in prayer, and let's keep David in our prayers, and David's family, and also Jeff's friend as well. Thank you. Gracious and loving Lord, thank you for the seasons we can count on, find routine in, and that will never cease while the earth. As we enter into autumn, when the cooler winds drift in and the days grow short, draw us closer to you. Let us feel your warm and loving presence. May we imagine ourselves in your arms, close to your heart, surrounded by your light, and find comfort in your consistency when the world around us seems to be constantly changing. Thank you for your loving kindness that engulfs us, and your light that drives the darkness away. We praise you for being a God who loves us and takes care of us. We are grateful you are with us in all circumstances and seasons. Amen. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our national anthem.
Thank you, Eric. And now, we're going to ask for happy bucks. Anyone can stand who has a happy buck they'll want to communicate with all? Happy bucks.
Sorry about that mic earlier.
I'm really happy about going to Albuquerque and Santa Fe here pretty soon.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Any others?
Where'd
Happy bucks?
I put this? Where'd I put the money? Like it.
Right here. Happy bucks. And
Oh,
then
there it is.
happy bucks over here. Trisha's got one.
We had a great North Texas Giving Day yesterday with the North Texas Food Bank. Thanks for any of you that support. Well, thanks for any of you that supported North Texas Giving Day. Not only for North Texas Food Bank, but so many nonprofits in our community benefited from that one day yesterday. So just thank you all for all you do to be able to support the community overall. And then I'll have another happy one too. My daughter's actually singing the national anthem Saturday night at the Texas Rangers game. So.
Woohoo! So Trisha, do we have any idea what the amount was for all charitable donations?
I think it was $63 million overall for in that one day. You know, one day you can give before, but the North Texas Food Bank, we had a little over 1.4 million. Last year we got 1.5. We know the economy's down, so we're very grateful for that.
That's great. That's great. Any other happy bucks? Okay, now a guest. Whoever has a guest, please stand and introduce your guest. Anyone? Ooh. Well, last week we had plenty of credits for guests, so this week I guess we're doing good still. Okay, and now, got a guest over here.
I'm really happy to introduce Nathan Pinzon with New York Life. He's a really fantastic person, one of my favorite people, and so I'm really thrilled that he's visiting today. He's already come to a PCR Connect, so we sincerely hope that he'll join, and he's already friends with a number of people in the group like Mark Hasher. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. Thank you.
Any others? One more. Oh, Casey back here.
Because it's my last week as a guest. Yay! So I was accepted Thursday. Thank you guys. So excited.
Yay.
Also, huge thank you for North Texas Giving Day. It was great. That's amazing. Over $1 million. I was super excited to get $15,000 for our organization, but amazing. So thank everybody who supported, and we really appreciate it. And I'm excited to join. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Kids U. Sorry, Kids University is my organization. So thank you.
Thanks. Any others? Okay. And so now I'd like to call on Happy Franklin. Kyle Marmillion. Kyle first for Marketplace Advertiser first.
Thank you. All right, today's Marketplace Advertiser is the People's Newspaper. People's Newspapers is committed to community. They've been serving the Park Cities with Park Cities people since 1981. In addition to the Park Cities people, they publish Preston Hollow People, both award-winning newspapers. They are committed to producing excellent community newspapers and digital offerings to serve the neighborhoods that they serve. The local journalism niche continues to be successful and grows despite a challenging media climate. In 2022, they won 10 awards from the National Newspapers Association. Awards for community service, advertising, page design, and editorial content. National Newspaper Association judges' comments included, very impressive in all ways, writing, layout, presentation, etc. Their lineup of weekly e-newspapers includes one specific to each market, Park Cities and Preston Hollow, Eat, Play, Give, focusing on lifestyle and charitable events, and the newly launched Sports Spotlight, covering high school and other sports news and features for our market. People Newspapers demographics, penetration, and readership are unmatched in Dallas, with a total circulation of about 45,000. As an advertiser, your message is reaching the right audience in substantial numbers. According to their latest audit, 72% of readers make buying decisions from the advertisement seen in People Newspapers. They would be honored to help you brand your company. Please join me in thanking them.
And now Happy.
I'm really thrilled to introduce Jim Thomas. He is a longtime Rotarian. He has just transferred here from Fredericksburg. We're so thrilled that he's here. And we have a fabulous folder for you with all kinds of stuff. And so let's give him a warm round of applause. Yes, so he's retired. He's a retired commercial real estate broker. Welcome, Jim. Excited for you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to call on past President Jeff McNAUGHTON to speak to the nominating committee.
How y'all doing? All right, so it's that time of the year again where we need to select the future directors and officers for our club for the next fiscal year. And so this year's nominating team is immediate past president, myself, current president, Mr. Sheehan, president-elect Nolan Duck, our vice president, Sarah Ollier, and at-large members, Mark Kasher, Happy Franklin, and Paul Pyrock. So we will get together and find some fine folks to fill those slots. We'll present it to the board for their vote. And then on December the 1st is our annual meeting, and at that time we will need a quorum, so we need some bodies at that meeting so that we can vote and install those new officers. Not install them, but vote for them. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff. And now we need to call on Mark NEACE, speak to the volunteers.
I'll do this from over here. So, any of our new members, if you want to be involved in our AV / public image team, looking for 1 to 2 other people that maybe you're tech savvy, maybe you just want to learn a new skill that you can also apply to your business to help market your business. We need some help setting up and executing the meetings on occasion with the AV and our live podcasts that we do on our YouTube channel. So if you want to learn how to do some of those things, or if you know a student maybe that's going to a technical school or one of our local colleges that have an interest in that and they want to volunteer 1 week a month or even more than that, it's a great opportunity for them. I can teach them some things and mentor them in the industry if they're interested in that as well. So if you know somebody, please get a hold of me and let me know. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And now a few announcements coming up. This Thursday we have a Top Golf on the 28th, so please sign up. You should have received notifications for that. And then, of course, I'll have Holly come up here just briefly. I'll come to you. Just she can announce from there. Thank you, Holly. And guys, again, this is a great event which started last year with Holly's genesis, Holly and Eric Harrison with this. And so we would ask that if you want to volunteer, it'd be great. I'll be there, and a bunch of us will be there. So, and
Not to mention, we have statewide media coverage thanks to our dear Mr.
right here. We have media coverage. And also on the 29th, we have the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League's walk, and there's a bunch of people here at Rotary that are joining a team, myself, Mark Kasher, we're heading this all up. So if you want to join or donate to the ADL walk, it'd be very appreciative. That's on the 29th, Sunday, of October. And then we have a program meeting on November 6th at the Park Cities Rotary Club, Park Cities YMCA. And that starts at 6:30. So if anyone wants to attend the meeting, this is where we talk and discuss potential speakers for the club, and that'd be great. We'll be having pizza. It's from 6:30 to 8 at the YMCA. And now I want to call Patty Schaub to, we're going to do our drawing for our pool. And our pool is, I think it's pretty high now, like about $2,200, I think. Yeah, deck's getting smaller, so if you bought a ticket, your odds are getting much, much better. So we'll have our speakers pick a number. Just one. And the winning number is 3701. And if you, Sean, you have a pretty good, you're the best odds of winning something here. So
what am I trying to pull?
Ace of Spades.
Ace of Spades, right here.
Private clubs. That's your parting gift. Okay. So now I'd like to call up Pat Martin. She's our chair of the day. Come introduce our speakers. Oh, Susan, okay.
So one of our favorite projects for our club is the North Texas Food Bank Volunteer Packing Day, and it's coming up October 14th. It's a Saturday. It's in the morning from 8:30 until 11:30. Thank you for the 12 that have already signed up. We've got 40 slots, so there's 20 more, 8 to go. Just this year in 2023, 144 million meals through the North Texas Food Bank for kids, seniors, and families. They also are having a peanut butter drive, so the goal is 400,000 pounds of peanut butter. So you can drop that off at North Texas Food Bank or bring it here and I'll get it to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Can I put it up here? So last week we were kind of running behind and our speaker had a very short period of time to speak, and now you have a plethora of time to speak, so excited about that. So Dr. Andy Stoker, for those of you that don't know him, is an interfaith leader, a teacher, and a guide. He's also the Vice President and Chief Engagement Officer for Thanksgiving Foundation. You all may be familiar with Thanksgiving Square downtown. The foundation owns that and offers it as a public space. He's going to talk a little bit more about that. So I first met Andy through Rabbi Nancy Kasten. And it was at an interfaith conversation hosted by Faith Commons, where Rabbi Nancy is the Chief Relationship Officer. Nancy had planned to be with us today as a panelist, but unfortunately she tested positive for COVID. Yeah. Our other panelist, another one of our panelists, Beryl Burke, also tested positive for COVID. But thankfully, we still have Andy and Dr. Peter Weldis, whom Andy will give a brief introduction on, that are going to have a conversation that we get to be privy to. For a good, as you can imagine, I'm so sorry. For a good part of the week, I've been in panic mode when I first heard that Nancy and Beryl tested positive. I furiously emailed, furiously, little dramatic, but I emailed the group and I prayed, I did do that, for good health, for Nancy and for Beryl, but especially that they would test negative for today, but unfortunately that did not happen. So during this time, every message from Andy ended with, "All will be well." I know that was intended to comfort me, and it did a little bit, poquito. But my relief came when I saw him in the lobby just a little while ago. So thank you for being here, Andy and Petra, and I give it over to you now. Thank you.
Does that work? It is a joy to be with you today as we get started and begin to understand a little bit of why we may be here in this space with you. Yeah, so Peter and I were having a conversation yesterday in the car when Pat emailed yesterday afternoon, and so we had a conversation driving home from our offices and said, well, we're just going to change it up a little bit. And by changing it up a little bit, that means that there's more conversation between us and less of a panel discussion, and we hope conversation with you all. So here's what we have in store. We've got about a 20-minute conversation together that we talk through, and then that leaves us 7 to 10 minutes or so to be in conversation with you. We'd love for you, I'm telling you all this right now so that you can have your question in mind as we get there. So your prompt is this: how has your faith upbringing, religious or spiritual, helped to shape your understanding of who you are as a human being and as a neighbor? So just think about that, and then we're going to lead in conversation, and then maybe one of the questions that you have may intersect there that we could be helpful in. So my introduction, Petra, was given ever so briefly. Will you introduce yourself before we get started?
Yeah, hi, welcome. Welcome to me to being here with you. I'm so delighted and always grateful to do something with Andy in the Thanksgiving Square. So I'm the spiritual leader of CSL Dallas, a center for spiritual living. I've been there since 1993. We've been in Dallas since 1963. We are an interfaith, multicultural, diverse spiritual community. We teach a philosophy called the science of mind, which comes out of New Thought. And we are a philosophy that draws from Eastern and Western revelations of religion. We're very interested in the leading edge of science and psychology, and we seek to see how philosophy weaves into the common thread of human aspirations and human needs. And understanding that beneath and behind all of our desires and our faith traditions, there's a golden thread that brings us together, and every faith tradition and every culture has something to offer. And if we can begin to understand those things, we can expand our own faith and walk perhaps a little more gently in the world and a little more connected to spirit. So that's what we're up to. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I'm just thrilled. And I've been involved in with Thanksgiving Square on and off for at least 20 years, and super happy that Andy is there.
Thank you. Yeah, so happy anniversary. When's your anniversary? 30 years?
Yes.
So when's your anniversary?
In month or year?
Well,
and ask me what are you asking?
So you said 1993.
Yes, 1993.
And so this is your anniversary year.
Well, this is my anniversary year, yes.
Okay.
I know, I can't even add it up. It's too long.
So we have, at the Thanksgiving Foundation, we have two threads that have emerged in our work over the last 60 years. We're celebrating our Diamond Jubilee as a foundation next year. That's 60 years. The Thanksgiving Foundation was founded in 1964. I have a hunch about our history. I'm not sure if it's true, so please italicize, bold, and underline hunch with this line of thinking. So I think that four business folks got together, led by Peter Stewart, in a response to John F. Kennedy's assassination. And what can we do as the city of Dallas to unite our hearts and minds around who we are and aspire to be? The foundation then, with Peter's great work, he built a large following in buying a piece of property in the center of downtown Dallas, hiring Philip Johnson, finishing the Thanksgiving Square in 1977, the largest horizontally mounted Dalle de Verre stained glass window in our chapel. If you haven't been to Thanksgiving Square, please make a trip down there. The weekends are gorgeous. The weather's going to be nice and cool over the next few weekends, so please make your way down there. We'd love to have you and for you to experience the contemplative garden and the chapel. Over the last 60 years, we've been known primarily to gather people together in interfaith dialogue and interfaith conversations. When I moved here to Dallas 25 years ago to go to seminary at SMU Perkins, so I guess I should give my faith background. So I'm an ordained United Methodist minister. That's in the Christian tradition. I came over to the Thanksgiving Foundation last summer after serving as senior minister of First United Methodist Church of Dallas for 9 years. And so it was a joy to serve there, once as an associate and then as senior minister. I'm also a mindfulness meditation teacher in the Western Buddhist tradition, and I'm finishing up a yoga therapy certificate to discern and decide what holistic healing might be, And I also, Petra, joined a running cult. So that seems to be the most intense religious tradition I've joined, is a running cult. Once you get in, they never let you go. And you better be there. I better. She's probably here somewhere. My coach is probably here. She's watching my every move. And she definitely watched my food intake. Interfaith dialogue has been part of the Thanksgiving Foundation's heart and our mind throughout. In my coming onto the Thanksgiving Foundation, we were taking that vision and mission as an organization with interfaith, sometimes difficult conversations, dialogue, and saying, can we translate this good work into social and racial equity spaces? And showing up with these body clothes, it was an interesting hire on behalf of the foundation, right? I've been heavily involved in public education advocacy and healthcare access advocacy. Had the privilege of serving on the North Texas Food Bank Board, and so food insecurity is also near and dear to my heart, and want to work us out of a job, right? For all of us. And so this interfaith dialogue really gets us to a point, not just talking about, oh, that's so nice to hear about CSL, Petra. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, what does it mean for us to walk together, sharing this experience in this life, in this city, right now, in the present moment, to shape a Dallas that is far more just, equitable, inclusive, and fair? What does that look like? What do our faith traditions bring to amplify that larger vision, to care for all of our beloved here in the city of Dallas? And so interfaith dialogue is a balm in the desert. We live in highly divisive, and it's a challenging time. And so we wanted to have a conversation today around how our faith tradition shapes how we show up in the world, how it's not just something we do in private on Friday nights, on Friday afternoons, on Sunday mornings, and then we just go about business as usual, maintaining the status quo after our worship and connections. How do we actually listen to the ancient scriptures, make those amplify and resonate into our hearts so that that message begins to be our outward posture to the world? So, first question, which we talked about in the car. So our faith traditions are similar and leaning heavily on spirituality. In what ways have you seen your faith come to life and action when it's emerging in this ethics and morality conversation?
Well, Andy, I've come with two particular stories, or two ways to draw from my own faith that have made a huge difference. I love that you said, how did the ancient scriptures whisper in our ears? And because we draw from both Eastern and Western scriptures, there's an extraordinary story in the Upanishads where Krishna is standing in a line where a battle is going to be happening, not dissimilar to in the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. And the two lines are drawn, and of course, unbeknownst to him, his charioteer is Arunja, which is the god figure, and he's there, and he notices as he looks on either side of the battle lines that are drawn, that his family is standing on both sides. And I remember that regularly when I find myself feeling into the polarization on Facebook, in the media, in family members, conversations, people who come and talk about what do I do at Thanksgiving when there's such a gap between what I think and someone else thinks. How do I see that when what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And that is such a seminal moment in that teaching when he stands there and he realizes that he has family members on both sides and they are going to go into battle with the idea of killing each other. And there's a huge awakening in that, which harkens really to our spiritual tradition, which is the awakening that, you know, we're all part of this one infinite life. We're all part of the love that is seeking to express itself. We're all the hands and voices and heart of the divine. And reaching across to that, to be able to see beyond and through the things that make us afraid of each other, or angry with each other, or disagreeing with each other, right? To be able to see through that is the beginning of, you know, I hate to always say understanding. I don't know what always understand, right? But at least commonality. And one of the things that I love that Thanksgiving Square has done recently is built a program called Faith Forward. And we agreed that we would stop talking about, well, what do you believe about that? Well, I believe the same, or I believe different, or how can we reconcile this? We decided that that was less important at the time. This was, I don't know, whenever Faith Forward was put together 8-10 years ago. And we decided what was more important is that we would find the values that we had in common, our ability to see the divine in each other, and that we would actually walk shoulder to shoulder for those things that we could work on. And if our values did not permit us to walk shoulder to shoulder about a particular thing, we would not hold each other back. Did I say that in a way that made sense? And what an extraordinary thing that was, to see that we could actually be opposed to certain social or political issues and yet still find a way to walk together to work toward some of these issues that Dallas is facing. So these are the kinds of things that I think we each draw from our faith traditions. That's what I've drawn that have really kept me basically in the arena when sometimes I'm in despair or just angry.
I think I want to pick up on the Faith Forward Dallas piece. So Faith Forward Dallas has 4 components to our shared advocacy that not everyone agrees on. Now, I want to make that explicit. Not everybody is signing some membership form or making sure, oh, you didn't put your initials next to this concern or issue. So the 4 are these: racial equity, gun sense, immigration and refugee status, and housing and homelessness. Those are our 4 issues that we consistently talk about at each of our meetings. What is the new research out there? What are we hearing from our neighbors? What's actually going on? How do we shape this understanding? What's going on in the city? What's going on in our congregations? And allowing us to leverage the diversity in the room to share an aspect of what is right according to that faith tradition or person's worldview, and discern what our next right step is. Not figuring out what side we're on. There is far more energy wasted on figuring out what side we're on than there is actually caring for our deepest societal concerns. And that, dear friends, is the kind of kinetic energy we need to be spending in critical times. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we live in one of those critical times. And one of those critical times does call on us to be love embodied. Dr. Cornel West, I love Cornel West. If you don't know of Cornel West, if you're a YouTube person, just type in Cornel West laughing, and there is a 15-minute video of just Cornel West laughing. And then if you're so inclined, I see a couple of you all just laughing, then keep clicking through and hear his words. He says this: justice is love with clothes on. Justice is love with clothes on. Well, in the Christian scripture, or what's oftentimes called the New Testament, we have that funny, I don't know, there's probably a few Post-it note letters from Paul in 1 Corinthians 13. Oftentimes read at a wedding, which is strange, but I won't go there. That's for another Rotary program. Strange things I've read at a wedding. So Paul says, love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful, arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way, but insists on the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And then verse 8, love never ends. This groundswell of love that we're tapped into. And I'm not talking about that just showing love. It's nice to meet you, Eric. It's so good to share lunch with you. But really, Eric, how is it with your soul? Finding ways to connect with another human being beyond our ego stuff and getting into the richness of our true self. So here's the next prompt. Conflict. Oh, please. Yeah.
I really want to say
It's
something
two
about
preachers.
what you.
It's two preachers.
It's what you said about justice. So I loved what you just said. So Simone Weil, who's considered one of the only potential new saints of the Catholic Church, right? She writes, on the other hand, how do you know what injustice is? And her definition of injustice is the cry of a soul being hurt. And again, there's no sides to that. There's no sides to the cry of a soul being hurt. And when we understand that love is as us, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Love yourself as your neighbor. Equally, right? The equal sign, that as, like it's a mathematical equal sign, right? You should be able to, do all those things that you do in an equation, and that's what that means, that word as, and to recognize that our souls are hurt, and if our souls are hurt, so are other people's souls, and it's not always a let me just fix it for you. Or I can't even imagine why you need it fixed. Just, get on with it, right? But to have that connection that you were just talking about, and whether that connection is individual or whether that connection is group, right? Sometimes the connection with the individual isn't enough. We also need connection larger with groups like this, policy-making groups, groups that can make a difference with, not-for-profits and businesses. There's so many ways that larger connection can be made. And what is our responsibility to that, right? What's our responsibility to, if we're one, if on both sides of the line is family, what's our responsibility to each other? Not power over, not to take care of because I know better than you, but because we're a part of the whole, and we're all what makes Dallas click together, right? All of us together. I was co-chair of the program that sought to bring the Parliament of the World Religions here in 2014. So we worked on that from 2010 to 2014 with Dallas and Fort Worth, and we did huge analysis and studies and things like that. And there are 44 faith traditions actively practiced in Dallas. There are 178 languages actively spoken in Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We are so much more diverse than we see ourselves, that we think of ourselves often, and to recognize that all of that, right, it's one-on-one, but it's also a larger perspective. What do we have as a responsibility for that, where flourishing is possible?
So let's lean into that with this part of the conversation. Peter and I are leaning into what is a new venture for the Thanksgiving Foundation, where we have this one prompt in conversations between 6 and 8 people, folks, neighbors in South and West Dallas, clergy folks. We just had a conversation on Monday. I've got nonprofit leaders coming in on Monday to the Thanksgiving Square with this prompt. What do we owe one another? What do we owe one another? In thinking about ethics and morality, what is it that we owe one another? Is it this idea that you only have value because there's capital? You only have value because you have property? What is our essential value? What is that essence of who we are and how we show up in the world? And how do we get beyond all of those layers and boundaries that are there and begin to see how we and the decisions we make can positively affect or negatively affect how the city and society functions? So I know this is just a huge lob, especially for a couple of preachers, because this is what we try to do every time we're with people, is remind those who are around us what we owe one another. If you think about your own faith tradition, if you think about your own worldview or philosophy that you espouse to, that's in essence what is actually being invited in all of us. What is it in this temporal time, in these temporal body clothes, that we can offer the world in this short period of time to expand not just our own, but connect with as many folks as possible? How many of you all in here have grandchildren? Look at that. Okay, congratulations. I'll look at all the pictures later. So grandchildren are the greatest example of this. They're children you never imagined when you were living with your own children. Hey, you were busy, carting to cellos and cello practice.
And you wondered whether your children would survive you to have those children,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, so but imagine Dallas is filled with all of our grandchildren, and they're grandchildren we never imagined. What life do we want to give them? What lessons do we want them to learn? What do we owe the children who follow us?
And so often I think we answer that question individually, which is a very powerful place to answer that question. But I wonder how often we ask that question with our business, with our company, with our corporations, with our activities, and how those, do we owe our children and our grandchildren a planet? Do we owe them a living? Not just money, but do we owe them an ability to make a living, to make a life? Do we owe them lives that are fulfilling and powerful and precious and right? And it's a constant, for me, it's a constant toggling back and forth between me as an individual and for us, my community, what we're involved in, the things that I'm contributing to, the things I give money to, the things I engage in, right? All of those things are all my impact in the answer to that question. What do I owe? What do you owe? What do you think is the answer to that question?
My prompt for that has been my morning meditation. I think this question being asked of me is about greeting every present moment in prefiguring the future. How do we prefigure what we want tomorrow to look like? So in the Christian faith tradition, Jesus teaches his disciples to pray. And he has this one turn of phrase that some of us are just trying to, preachers especially, if it's close to noon, you try to move quickly through the Lord's Prayer in order to get people out to lunch. But if you really take one phrase, on earth as it is in heaven, if you take that one phrase out and you really maybe make that your mantra, something that is your idea. Heaven, sure, it could be pearly gates and golden streets and all of that vision. My heaven is where everyone is seen not in these body clothes, but in the essence of love that we're always longing for. So how do we strive for that? So when I was senior minister at First United Methodist Church, we did a lot of work in anti-racism training. And so I would always start every training with this. I'd say, anti-racism is the first step. It's not the end result, it's the first step. The end result is actually living today as we want to see tomorrow. Living today as we want to see tomorrow, that makes me think not only individually on what behaviors I have today, how am I going to greet all my neighbors, am I going to allow them to see who I truly am, or am I going to keep it to myself, or am I going to just function out of ego? Please call me Reverend Doctor when you see me in the hallways, everyone. I expect it. That's just how I work, everybody. It's not just Andy. It's Reverend Dr. Stoker. Everybody. That's not how I function in the world. And I don't want people to. I want people to see me beyond all of these trappings of culture and society and engage. And that's what I'm seeking in every interaction that I have. How is it with you? How is it with your soul? How do we drive from there? And sometimes those conversations are hard. So, speaking of hard conversations, thanks, we're leaning in. Okay, good. So I'm wondering, what's emerged for you? Any questions, concerns? We can also take any anger issues. We're both trained in conflict mediation. And that's, well, kind of, it's not just trained, but we're practiced in conflict mediation. So questions, comments, things that came up for you? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Mic and then have
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys
Ron.
share. Yeah.
There's a mic coming. There's a mic coming toward you.
Don't you think the political climate has this?
No, just hold it.
Hello?
Right there. There you go. There you go.
Don't you think the current political climate has led to this divisiveness and hostility that we have in our society right now? And do you think it could be solved if we have more objective sort of leaders that can think things through and provide solutions to problems? I just say this because I ran for U.S. Congress and I kind of got a sense of kind of the sentiments that are out there. And if I run again, I think I'm going to focus on solutions and trying to solve problems. I just thought you might have some perspective on that.
I've got two sentences that I'm going to pass to you because I know that you've got. So 2 sentences. We are not separated from whatever's going on in politics, semicolon. We are politics. How we function on a day-to-day basis is what we're seeing amplified in the political realm. If it's something you don't like or you don't agree with, then look within first. This is a hard lesson. This is held by world religions everywhere. If it's something you don't like, it's time to look in deeply and in a mirror and see, what role do I play in making this division continue and occur?
Yeah, and part of that is also then the story that we keep telling and how we keep narrating that story. So I would say that that again, the political situation that we're in and the divisiveness that we experience is an outpicturing of the way in which we have narrated the difficulties that we're experiencing, and that rather than looking for solutions, we've spent a lot of time talking about how we believe that a point of view is correct or what side we're on and what's wrong. We're constantly focusing on what's wrong. And so when you said prefigure the future, from our faith tradition, that prefiguring of the future also means to begin to talk about the possibility, talk about the potential, which is very different than I have the right answer and you have the wrong answer. Or if you would just see it differently. And of course, we all, you know, me included, it's much easier to talk with people who agree with me because you're all smart because you're agreeing with me, right? You're so smart. And those people who are not agreeing with me, oh, well, I have words, I have names I can call you, right? Which is what it has sort of devolved into. And the ability to have civil discourse and the ability to have inquiry into other points of view, the ability to actually speak strongly about a solution that may be different than what's being suggested in the room, all are possible when we're grounded in our traditions that say we're really all in the same family, and it really is love that is seeking to move through us. and to trust that process. But we start at home. We start in our own neighborhoods, in our own businesses, how our businesses work with each other, how we work with other people. And it starts with how we talk about it. And it starts with how we constantly tell the story and about how it hasn't worked, still isn't working, therefore is never going to work, right? And so we have to narrate a new future into being, which we clearly understand, if we're not careful, can seem Pollyannish, right? But it's actually not. It's both scientifically, psychologically, and spiritually been proven that if we stand for a vision and speak for that vision with authenticity, clarity, and intellectual, what do I want to say, integrity, intellectual integrity, that we do actually begin to speak the possibility into reality. And a solution, sometimes the solution is, I don't know how this is going to happen, but this is the end result I think that we're looking for, right? We don't always have to know the how. That's a part of the trust, right? That's the part of the faith tradition. Andy and I were having this conversation yesterday, and I wish I had written it down. So this is a paraphrase of Andy Stoker, right? It's not, it's the gospel according to Andy Stoker, but I'm paraphrasing. And he said, faith shouldn't give us certainty. Faith should give us the place to stand so we can deal with uncertainty. And we think our faith gives us the answer. Makes us certain, and we know how it is, and if everybody isn't doing it that way, what's the matter with you? No, but when I stand in my trust, I'm not so afraid for you to see it differently. I don't need for you to see it exactly the same way. That ability to stand in the unknown and to explore the possibilities. So, thank you for your question. We're all grappling with it, right? Okay, well, I saw a hand over here. One over there, and then we saw a hand here, and then here.
Thank you. This is very interesting. I wonder what you're talking about. The vision just makes terrifically good sense. But there are a lot of people that say, "To hell with the vision. I'm going to defend my position, and right or wrong, because I'm definitely right." So. It's a question of making people want to have a vision. And I think that's pretty tough.
I think we just have to make it so we just have to make it so compelling you can't make somebody change their minds, right? So there was a fabulous study done in about 7 years ago, which is the most extraordinary thing. The more wrong somebody feels about their position, the more right they're going to defend it. It's really right. Yes. I mean, this is a university scientific study, and what happens is that it escalates the intensity of the defense of the position escalates the more out of alignment it becomes until ultimately it collapses. And so it's I mean, it was like, whoa, wait, are we really that weird as people? And so, yeah, so my answer to that question, well, is we just keep having to cast as compelling a vision as we can and inviting people into it. And I think what I think I owe you as my neighbor, is the best vision I can have and not fall into, well, you're wrong if you don't get the vision. Yeah.
Great. That's a great answer.
Well, first, I want to thank both of you, Andy and Petra, for being here today and having this conversation. I just have a comment. So Mark 12:30 says, the two greatest commandments are love thy God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as yourself. And for me personally, I've come to know that really love is a measure of a life. And love is in the form of a smile to a stranger, is in the form of you're in the grocery store and check out and you call someone by their name, say, thank you, Elizabeth, for packing my groceries. It comes in many forms, and it's not complicated, but it's what's needed more and more today.
Thank Thank you all both for being here, and I apologize if you touched on this earlier because I had to step out, but there's a lot of talk right now about living in a post-Christian world. And so Pew and every other demographic study shows how mainstream, mainline, traditional traditions, denominations are withering away. Fewer and fewer people join, more and more people leave and become used to be a Catholic, I used to be a Baptist, etc. What is happening? How do you guys interpret that drift? Are we really drifting away from mainstream religion? And if so, what are we drifting toward?
So we have MAGGIANO'S till 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Is that right? I just want to make sure. I'm just checking with the program. Oh, in 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay. No problem. Yeah. Okay. So so let me speak. I'll speak to the United Methodist faith tradition. Any other? Okay. Okay. And Oh, okay. Well, wow. Here at table one, we've got it going. Take off the luchador masks. We've got, okay. So remember two things I'm going to say. I am a clergy diva, just so you know. And what you hear about this erosion of institutions will inevitably touch on religion, inevitably. Okay, so in the United Methodist faith tradition, we were not our clergy class were lay people who traveled place to place, home to home, offering communion or Holy Eucharist once a month. It was in 1866 when the Methodist Church decided to ordain clergy people, build churches, and give clergy people an office, that the church actually started to decline. The decline in mainstream Christianity has been since the mid-1800s, where the power of the church was taken out of the hands of lay people and placed in the hands of someone who needed a master's degree in order to run the business and serve at the table. If churches knew, let me say it this way, church people don't want their pastors to do theology. If church folks knew what theology actually looked like beyond running the business of the church, there would not be church people. Theology is about, especially in the Christian tradition, is about giving all that you have to the poor. It's about sharing all things in common. It's about shaping a world where everyone is equitable. Everyone has enough. That worldview, especially in the United States, is not something many of our church beloved want to hear. This is the current rub. So as a pastor for 20 years, I have been an associate, I've been a youth minister, I was even a janitor because I couldn't get my comedic career off the ground. I don't know, I won karaoke contests, I was doing so well, but I needed some extra money. I know you all are picturing it now, Andy Stoker at late night. It's great. For 20 years, there is something that is inspiring me to preach for and with the community, and there's something I have to say to maintain the church's status quo. Basically moving slowly forward in people imagining this wider vision. There is a clash of worldviews in the United States. The gospel and capitalism don't mix. And that's a hard thing to hear. I'll end where I began. I see you, Mr. President. I'll end where I began. Oftentimes, conversations around faith isn't so much the difficulty of sitting with a neighbor of a different faith, but is actually confronting the bigger, broader issues and problems of our world, and coming to grips that at 12:01 on a Sunday, I'm going to take off my robe and stole, and I'm going to walk right out and do the same thing I was doing before. Our faith calls us, compels us, woos us, makes us, churns us to imagine a world that is currently unimaginable and have difficult and faith-filled conversations about what's hurting, yes, even an individual, to discern with faithful hope how we can heal and help this one who is hurting. How'd I do?
Great.
Round off, 1 o'clock, it's done. Thank you so much.
Andy, Petra, we appreciate it very much, y'all coming here today. And clearly, I think we can all learn from this. I think the biggest lesson I learned is respect your neighbors, because your neighbors are your neighbors. And, you know, we have those divisions, but you've got to start somewhere. So thank you very much. And in honor of y'all being here today, a book will be placed at McShannon Elementary in your honor.
All
So
right,
thank you very
yay,
much.
that's great, thank you.
And so, thank you very much.
I'll just say,
Yes, you can leave it there. And so next week, Scott, Bill Sleeper is going to be our chair of the day next week. Bill Eller is going to be speaking about horse racing in Texas. And now we'll have Jim Thomas come up here and do the four-way test. Give me 1 second here.
First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.